year on campus, and this is my story. I was adopted as a baby into a wonderful and loving family. Growing up, I was raised a Christian, and I grew up in the church. I paid enough attention in Bible school to know who Jesus was and what he did, and to answer the questions that my teachers would ask. However, I never really saw any value in it, and I didn't have a relationship with him. I understood the importance of loving others and being kind, but I didn't necessarily act that way because I knew Jesus. It's just how I was raised. I didn't want to be there, so I never paid attention during the church services. I put up a front, showing that I cared instead. In grades 4 through 7, I was bullied by one of my close friends, which led me to question a lot of things, one of which was, who am I as a person? During this time, I chose to be friends with someone who was a poor influence on me. She encouraged the way I treated my parents and how I acted, slowly bringing me out of my comfort zone and the ideals that I was raised with. She would convince me to sneak out with her when I was over, go visit friends that I didn't know, and more. I knew deep down that I shouldn't have been doing these things, but I wanted her to like me, and she paid attention to me. One night, when I was over, she convinced me to go with her and her older sister to a friend's house. We ended up taking a cab across town and got dropped off at a hotel. When we got to the friend's house, I realized that it was a party. The people in attendance were drinking and some had drugs. This was the moment where I realized that I had to change some aspects of my life, and I slowly stopped hanging out with her. In school, I was the good kid. I answered the questions and I stayed quiet in class. However, when I wasn't in class, I was deliberately seeking out trouble. There were many days that I ended up with a lunch detention or having to clean the bus due to getting into trouble. My home life wasn't always that much better. I was always quick to anger and chose not to listen to my parents out of spite. At the time, I didn't see that anything was wrong, and I was happy with the way that I was living my life. My parents always showed love and grace in the way that I was disciplined, trying to show me Jesus, but I ignored it. When I was in 8th grade, one of my cousin's friends invited us to join her at a Bible camp. Previous to this, we attended a few summer camps, looking for something fun to do in our summers. This is where I first actively saw Jesus working in other people's lives and how different mine was in comparison. This was also the first place in time I heard what the gospel was and what it truly meant. This led to a lot of confusion on my part, and it was something that I wrestled with for a few years. When I was in high school, my younger sister started going through a phase in her life where she defied all authority. This led to her choosing to do poorly in her academics, hanging out with the wrong friends, and lash out. This put a lot of pressure on me to be the perfect daughter since I was older. If I couldn't get an A, then I was showing my sister that it was okay. At least that's how I felt. I felt that it was my job to try and set her straight, although I had no clue how. I continued to attend camp with my cousin every summer, and when I was in 10th grade, I attended the discipleship program that they had. This was a 2-week camp where I was taught what it meant to be a disciple and follower of Christ, how to serve with joy, and much more. On the Sunday after week 1, we had a day of silence where we read our Bibles and answered reflective questions. The day ended with worship and communion. Before the worship started, one of my counselors took me outside. They told me that since I haven't accepted Jesus as my Savior, that I couldn't take communion since that's what the camp believed. This led me to think about my life and why I haven't done so. The following 2 days, I asked my counselors a lot of questions, trying to wrap my head around the concept of the gospel and what it truly meant to accept Jesus. On Wednesday of that week is when my life changed. I prayed to receive Christ with my counselors and experienced true joy for the first time in my life. I finally found what made everyone around me so different: Jesus. This didn't erase the pressures that I felt at home as the older sibling or the anger that I was used to feeling, but it made it easier since I know that I wasn't alone in it. Coming into college, I was upset with God because I didn't want to attend Stevens Point. I wanted to attend Eau Claire. I had my camp friends there, family that lived there, and my parents wanted me to attend there as well. The only issue was I wasn't accepted into the music program at Eau Claire. Stevens Point, however, accepted me the day I auditioned before I even left the room. You would think that I would have seen God working in that, but didn't want to listen. This led me to experiencing a freshman year of unhappiness that I hid deep down and ignored. This affected my studies and stopped me from trying to make friends. However, through attending crew, church, and Bible studies, the Christian community around me slowly helped open my eyes and accept that I had a purpose here. Following freshman year, I was hired as a counselor at the camp I went to in middle school and high school. This grew me in my faith and in my understanding of what it meant to be a follower of Jesus even more. It was also here that I realized the role that God truly played in my life, and I accepted everything that I have experienced. I realized that he chose the family that chose me. This led me to becoming great friends with my cousin, whose friend invited me to camp where I heard the gospel, and where God used the staff and speakers to speak truth in my life, which led me to accepting Jesus. Because I grew up in the town that I did, I was familiar with the Stevens Point area and campus from attending past state solo ensemble events and school field trips to the Star Lab and the library. And because God knew my fear of having a roommate that I didn't know, he placed me with someone who was a Christian that I went with to crew, Bible study, and church, creating a wonderful friendship. Since then, I've continued to serve at camp as a counselor, I've helped to lead Bible study on campus, and I've been on a missions trip to the dunes. All of these have grown me in my faith and in my walk with the Lord. A Bible verse that has always spoken strength and guidance to me is Romans 8:31. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who is against us? This is a reminder to me that God will be there every step of the way. I don't know what my future will entail, and there are many unknowns, but I know that whatever happens, God is there. If any part of my story resonated with you tonight, or if you just want to talk, I will be in the back after crew, and we'd love to chat. Thank you.